Hi, today I am meeting Sri from Kriti Labs, a gentleman who has been in a techno commercial function for almost 2 decades, have worked through some of the largest IT companies in India, and has been running Kriti Labs, IoT first company based out of Chennai. And they currently power 75% of logistics movement of oil and gas industry in India. So that's a very interesting number, and I think she can share with us some very interesting insights on what makes this technology adoption possible. Because at the end of the day, technology is only valuable if it is adopted and used properly by enterprises. So, welcome, Sri.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you for the opportunity. We'll be happy to share our experiences in this journey of having set up Kriti Lab and addressing many of the real world problems through technology in India.
Sure. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Kriti Labs, and then we dive deeper into the solution and how are you solving the problems in real life?
Yeah. So Kriti Labs is an end-to-end solution company. It's a ground to cloud player, meaning right from designing and manufacturing our own devices to cloud-based analytics, we provide an end-to-end solution. So that way, our work starts right from understanding the pain point, right, and then right from the problem statement to delivering large scale projects, right? So this is possible through our patented platform, right? So where the platform is device agnostic, the platform supports edge computing, the platform supports AI, and basically it is implemented at scale and it is real time, right? So the main USP that we have is that we provide large scale implementation of technology, no matter what the domain is and no matter what the problem statement is. As on date, Kriti Lab has a presence in 220 towns and cities in India where we solve various kinds of problems. And we manage assets worth around almost 150 billion US dollars each year through the platform.
Wow, that's a big number. So tell me, like, I'm sure this is not a new problem to manage logistics and to track logistics and monitor that, right? And you are not a very, very old company. You are just 12 years in business, right? And still you captured 75% of the market. So I'm sure you are doing something which is different and more practical than the existing solutions had. And also, it is interesting to see that maybe many companies were greenfield who never used the kind of monitoring and observability platform that you created. So I would love to understand that what was the constraint that these companies were facing, and what was the solution that you brought in that helped them cross that bridge.
Correct. So many of the companies before we introduced were trying to use their vehicle tracking systems as a control system, right? Vehicle tracking system is a monitoring system. It can give you insights, but for you to act upon it, you will need a control system. So we introduced a electronic locking system which had both tracking as well as locking in it. So it was a monitoring as well as a control system. So that gave the client a much better control over their fleet and its operations, right? Second, we were able to give them better utilization, right? Looking at a real-time view of where all their assets are spread, right? So, for instance, we run a 24/7 command center supporting 9 different Indian languages, which allows people to call up the command center and basically get their queries solved within minutes, right? So that way, it is not only technology, it is also the way technology is enabled and built in line with the customer processes, which allows them a better ROI.
So I'll just take that one important point you said. So you went beyond monitoring. So many companies get stuck at monitoring when they talk about IoT, especially when it comes to logistics. You went into monitoring and locking. So basically, that saves pilferage. So that creates real business value for the customer. Whereas monitoring may be creating value, but it's not measurable easily. Right? I mean, I know that there are 200 trucks of mine moving around the country, and I know where they are, but that does not give me measurable value on the balance sheet. But here, if you can say by putting my solution in, you can actually save pilferage. This means that 2% that you used to consider will get lost in transit. Now that 2% becomes 1.5 or even 1%. That's a huge amount in any large company's balance sheet. So that must be the big reason why companies move to you.
Yeah, so one is of course the control system. Second is the system has been customized to operate in the Indian conditions, right? So where I mean, if you look at the northeast and if you look at the Himalayan ranges, Himalayan areas around the Himalayas, your network availability will be a huge issue, right? So how do you operate IoT in area where there is no network?
Okay.
Right, so all our devices are smart devices.
Right.
Even if there's no network, they still operate with the same functionality.
I see.
Okay, so that is how the entire platform has been built. So the platform has been customized to operate for the Indian conditions. So one thing is a lot of technology gets imported from outside, but what is normally not measured is the cost of customization, the cost of adapting it to Indian conditions, right? Whereas since this platform has been built in India, many of the Indian conditions are necessarily adopted into it, right?
Extreme heat, extreme cold.
Extreme heat, extreme cold, non-availability of network, everything is taken care of in this, right? So that is why whatever works in India, so now the same system is being used in Nepal, it's being used in Bhutan, right?
Wow.
So that way it has been kind of highly customized to varying conditions.
And today there is a big concern going around is that if you are importing any equipment, it may have issues in terms of data privacy and data sovereignty of Indian origin.
Correct.
How is that being handled?
So one is we design and build our own devices. So meaning
Okay.
right from the device hardware to the firmware, we build it. Right? Since right from the firmware to the cloud software, since we build it, it is very, very safe. So we control in terms of what is being communicated, where is being communicated, encryption, all that is already available on the platform.
So when you communicate value to a customer, what are the common pushbacks that you see? Because customers possibly are not able to see that value, because whenever you are bringing something new, right, the value for that is difficult to establish on day one. So how should companies look at these situations when absolutely new technology is being introduced?
Right.
And for them, they are not sure if that will actually impact their KPIs or not.
The primary driving factor for any business in taking a technology decision will this affect my business? In the sense, will there be a disruption? I mean, leave alone the value that it might add to the top line. The first concern that any business manager will have is, will my operations get impacted
In a negative way.
in a negative way?
So you are talking about people want to protect things first.
Protect
then
things first. Then, so first I look at whether there will be an impact in the negative way. Then once I realize that no, it is going to be like threaded with my existing process, I don't need to change anything, right? My business will not be impacted in a negative way. Then I start looking at the positives. What else do I draw out of it, right? So this will help adapt the resistance to change, right? So while most of the technology decisions will be very well understood by the technology divisions, the ultimate business divisions, which is going to be the ultimate user of it, they will need to understand and appreciate, and their buy-in is required, right? And if the business divisions are assured that the new technology is not going to affect the operations, it is in fact going to create a positive impact on them, right? Then their buy-in will be a lot more easier.
So what I understand from you is that it's the risk management of the product or the solution is far more valuable to start a conversation.
Correct. So most of the solutions that we give operate in the very core business processes of our customer, right? For instance, for oil and gas alone, we manage around 30,000 trips across the country on a daily basis,
Okay.
right?
Wow.
So that way, any impact there is going to operate their core operations,
Right.
right? So the first question that the business manager is going to ask is, will there be a negative impact on my operations? That
course.
will be the first question. So as long as the business users are bought into the decision, they are shown the value, your technology implementation becomes that much more easier.
Right.
And all stakeholder buy-in is important. For instance, our end customers, most of them have not crossed their third grade,
I see.
right? They are truck drivers,
The
truck
users you are
the
talking about.
users,
Yeah.
right? How do we get their buy-in, right? So making them one understand the benefits that the new system is going to provide them, and constantly training them on the benefits that they derive, right, is the way you can get their buy-in into the system.
So, I mean, what I understand is that selling technology or buying technology is like starting a startup, but actually, user adoption is like the revenue. Because if you do not have revenue, the business has no value. Like, I mean, everything is in Excel sheet and it's all imaginary.
Correct. So when you're talking about, see, right now the word digital transformation is very, very loosely used,
Yes.
right? Digital transformation needs to touch the end users. And for that to happen, there will need to be a constant handholding and a constant buy in from the various stakeholders. It's not only the technology managers or the business managers, right? Right from the person who's going to actually use it to people who are going to maintain it, employees, everybody will need to be bought into a digital transformation exercise.
I truly believe in that because I think transformation is not a boardroom discussion. Maybe the outcome of that will be discussed in boardrooms, but actual implementation of transformation has to happen by empowering the workforce. If I have got 10,000 people on the ground, unless digital transformation impacts and improves their life and their work process on the ground level, it doesn't really shows up in the company's ROI.
Yes, that is true, right? So, I mean, the question will be, how do we showcase the benefits of the transformation exercise to different stakeholders?
Yes.
Each stakeholder is going to look at it very differently in terms of the impact that it has on his or her work, right? I mean, it is like people trying to understand an elephant, right? Each part looks very, very different, right? So that way, this constant reinforcement of the system, right, in terms of the benefit that it brings, and ensuring that the adaptation to the system becomes easier for them is very, very important in a large scale system. So for instance, when we started out with we started with 2 oil terminals. Now we have implemented our system in 240 oil terminals across the country.
So, what can technology leaders in large corporates do to improve adoption of different technologies that they buy? I mean, if we move away from what you do, let's say they buy a CRM or let's say they buy a HRMS, a very expensive system that they buy, like they spend maybe crores on that. How do they improve adoption of that? Because without adoption, it's like, snake oil in a way.
Correct. So the first thing in my view is to look at how is it going to impact my organization. Each of it, there's no one standard size fits all, right? It's always a combination of people, process, and technology. What suits one organization may not necessarily suit the other organization. So any solution needs to be adapted in line with their existing process. So that way, if there is a system which, I mean, there will need to be a delta change, but it should not be so high that it disrupts the system on day one.
So basically, you are saying that the adoption can happen when CIOs work with business leaders and they look at that what will it change. First of all, they should verify, make sure that there is no negative change. On the positive change, that depends on the uh, implementation and usage inside the users who should be using the product. There also their life and their process should have delta change, not a large change. And gradually we should try to add more and more to that to make sure that the adaptability of that new solution becomes easier for them.
Correct. So the thing in most systems will be the business managers will be able to envision the target operating model,
Okay.
which is very, very important. But the stakeholders under them may not necessarily see that larger view, right? But their buy-in is equally important for the system to succeed,
Right.
right? Otherwise, if it is just getting pushed from the top, there will be resistance,
I see.
right? So, breaking down the target operating model into uh, basically conceivable steps, right? And measuring the progress with adequate metrics at each stage, and each of those problems being small enough for the lower level stakeholders to solve, adapt to it, right? That would be the key to a large scale transformation exercise.
So what I can summarize this is that how do you make it idiot proof for the last person in the chain
Correct.
and make it easy and simple for him to apply in his daily life. And even if the overall change is big, how do you break it down into smaller changes and implement over time
Correct.
rather than do a big bang change that comes in?
Correct. So the key thing to understand is that Rome was not built in a day,
Of course.
right? As long as you make positive progress in the direction that you have set, you are making very good progress, right? So it should not happen that you making a big step and during that process a lot of people not understanding the benefit and then creating a resistance, right? Because then you will have to overcome the resistance. There will always be a evaluation of, I mean, is it good money after bad money?
But in a highly competitive world, Sri, in a highly competitive world where the management wants to see the outcome, that is one part. The second part that you are saying in real world to get the implementation right, we have to take small steps and it will take time. How does the person in the middle, who is the CIO and the business leader, convinces the top management that it's going to take time if we really want to extract value from this implementation or this solution? How does this dynamics work?
Correct. So, as the management, any management will be apprehensive about, am I realizing the ROI for the money being put in?
Of course.
Right. So, as the business manager who is responsible for that, if I'm able to draw out a plan, right, on how I'm going to reach my target operating model from the current state that I am, build into very logical steps, right? Showing the path from the current status to the target operating model.
Okay.
Identifying the stakeholders, right? Each of the stakeholders who are involved in that particular stage, right? What is in it for them,
Right.
getting their buy-in, right? And more importantly, identifying the metrics that you can use to monitor the progress, right? If this is published in advance, right, that will give the necessary comfort to the management, saying that, I mean, it has been really well thought out and being very well planned, right? So that one, everybody understands what their role is, including the management.
So today, the biggest challenge that I see is that there is a lot more noise than signal, especially in a world which loves hype. So I'm sure when you started off on the IoT front, IoT hype was also real. It was like massive hype all around. Like everyone was talking about Industry 4.0. And if you really see today, I don't think even 80% of the factories in India have adopted Industry 4.0 even after one decade. So, how do you suggest IT leaders or business owners filter signal from noise so that they can actually take the right technical decision to implement in their business?
See, ultimately, the way I see it, it is the business goal, which is the driving factor. That should be the anchor. Now, the business leader should see, for me to look at this particular business goal, which is in line with where the industry is moving, how do I leverage on technology to reach this business goal? As long as my business goals are anchored, as long as my business goals are measured, I get to pick and choose the technology that is required to make me progress towards my business goal, right? If I start choosing a technology and then see how that technology can give, I mean, it is possible, but it is far more difficult to measure. Whereas if I know my business goal, this is where I want my business to be in the next 2 years, 3 years, this is where my industry is headed. And for this purpose, how do I leverage on technology? Right?
So,
The
yeah.
business goal should be the anchor.
So I understand that understanding your business goal allows you to filter noise and signal so that you can only catch on the core aspect that you should be worrying about and thinking about, and not all the noise all around, right? But then it gives rise to another interesting question. A lot of times, new technology which is evolving might be able to allow me to do a lot more than what I actually thought. So my business goal I set for, let's say, direction A, but using technology, I can actually go to direction B, which is far better than direction A. Now, that is where I think indecision and confusion starts happening, because I'm sure a lot of business leaders have their business goals very clear, and they may to choose the technology which are available in the market to achieve that. Though again, there might be indecision there, that's a different topic altogether. But the change in technology creating more confusion about, should I now change my goal because A has moved to B? How should leaders, in your opinion, because you have worked with technology leaders, how should they be looking at this and solving for this?
Yeah. So it's a very, very good question. So one thing to understand is that your wave of technology is going to keep changing every couple of years, right?
That's right.
So now does that mean that I will need to change my technology suite every time the technology changes? The answer is a no. One, I will need to keep abreast of the technology changes. Do small experiments, right? As long as I don't get stuck in a status quo, right, I'm making progress.
Okay.
Right? So most of the organizations get caught in this, you can call it, in this comfort feeling of waiting and watching without actually acting upon things, right? While I can wait and watch in terms of technology changes, it's important for me to introduce small changes so that I don't get stuck in a status quo. Since there are small changes which are constantly happening in the organization, depending on the impact that that particular technology has on my organization, I can hedge better. Right? What works for me or what works for my competitor need not necessarily work for me. Each organization is very different.
Of course. So what I understand is that you keep moving forward. That is far more important than anything else.
Correct.
And at times there another confusion happens that if I'm moving forward slowly and slowly, I am building a lot of tech debt in the system. I am building a lot of process debt in the system. How do I clean this up as my organization matures and I'm going to change the orbit of the business now? So how do you see that getting solved and happening?
So one, as your technology changes rapidly, some tech debt being there you cannot avoid.
Right.
Right. So since you are constantly moving on all directions, you will be able to identify in which direction is your ROI better, right?
Okay.
What suits your organization so that you can hedge your cards accordingly, move in that direction, right? So whereas if you keep watching and finding out without making any change in the organization, suddenly you will be left with a huge change that needs to be done. As I mentioned, that has a huge impact on the organization, right? Constant change in which leads to constant progress forward, right, will be the right way to do it instead of taking in a huge change which the organization has to suddenly adapt to.
Right. So basically, change management is at the end of the day key to
Yes,
having a successful adoption.
correct.
That takes me to a very interesting point that I have believed in, and I want to validate if you believe in similar things. So a lot of people come and say that AI is going to kill the IT service business, which we both are in, and then I always come back and think about it, and my thoughts tell me that what AI will do is at most, automate the coding process, which is a small part of the whole IT process. Because the bigger part of the IT process is actually doing change management, actually working with the people on the ground, actually apply the emotional quotient and social quotient, and understanding the dynamics of the organization and making sure that the technology actually gets implemented and works in the business. And that is why I think as more and more technology gets created because of AI, the role of IT services businesses will actually grow than reduce. What do you think about it?
One, see, there is a initial euphoria about AI,
Of
right?
course.
Agentic AI, right? I mean, I just remember this dialogue from the Harry Potter movie where they'll say that just because you have learned to use the wand now doesn't mean that you need to use it to climb down the stairs.
Right.
Right, so it is that initial euphoria now, so everything you try to do it through AI, right, but this euphoria will slowly settle in and you will identify the priorities. In my worldly view, the priorities would be for AI to solve things which would otherwise be impossible for humans to solve on their own, right? For instance, one of the areas which we are using AI for right now is the crowd management for the Indian Railways,
Okay.
right? Looking at the real time view of how many people are there in the platform in various portions, and then helping railways make decisions, right? So problems like these, which would otherwise be very very intensive, almost impossible for humans to solve, these are the kinds of problems which AI will help solve, right? And there are so many such problems, right? So slowly, and IT services is an enabling factor in reaching these, right? As you said, coding is a very very minuscule portion of it,
Yeah.
right? So slowly people will realize that the larger problem is very different, right?
Yeah.
Which AI is going to help solve. And these are smaller components in it.
Right. So understanding the customer needs, understanding their organizational challenges, understanding the dynamics of the business, figuring out what to solve, what process I should solve it, how should I roll it out. Because if coding is even 100% automated, even then there's a lot of the other components that needs to be solved to actually implement and make it work. Don't you think this will also push companies to bring technology in-house, because a lot of these answers to these questions will be available to internal people better than external IT companies? What are your thoughts on that?
One, I mean, at the end of the day, the business understands its needs much better than the
Of
outside
course.
consultants. But a business obviously cannot solve everything on its own, right? So that way, the consultants will still be required, their roles might change, right? They will be more of business enablers than technology enablers. The business component in their role might increase, right, but they will still be required even for adapting AI to the businesses, right? So I mean, your coding might be done by the AI, but you will still need to adapt these AI models to help the customers solve their problems.
So they will need advisors more than
Yes,
coders, and of course programmers. And I understand is that they have to eventually, in fact, very fast, they have to move from being programmers to people who understand business and who are able to guide the customer. So they should move from doing the job to understanding what to do and how to do, rather than just sitting and writing the code.
Yes.
So if you would be a career advisor to someone, would this be the career advice you will share with someone?
Yes, I would want them to focus more on problem solving, because your coding is only an enabling factor in a problem solving exercise.
Okay.
Your problem solving is not going to change. I mean, whether there is AI, no AI, analytics, no analytics, your problem solving is going to remain the same.
True.
Right? So, most of the roles will require a much deeper understanding of what they are trying to solve and using the appropriate tools, including AI, to solve it.
So now, from your past experience, Sri, share some uh, anecdotes where you have seen um, technology projects or technology implementations fail. You need not mention the name of the client, of course, but share some of those anecdotes and tell us what did you learn from that.
So, one, there are large scale transformation projects which have kicked off, but they have not really seen the end, right? A successful completion. So, one of the primary factors will be in terms of during the course, people realizing that either that solution is far ahead of its age,
Okay.
right? It is, I mean, from a business model perspective, from a desktop perspective, the solution absolutely works. But when you take it to the real world, right, the real world is not at a stage, at a maturity level where that can be adopted.
So it's
So
very much like, when you say that this car gives you a mileage of 100 kilometers, and then when you actually put it on but that is on the test track.
right.
But the moment you put it on the traffic of Chennai, the mileage may drop from, let's say, 100 to 40 or even 35, because we are ignoring lots of other factors which are playing.
Correct. Right. So this understanding of the impact of real world factors on your implementation, on your technology, is a very key thing. I mean, while you cannot be prepared for everything,
Of course.
right? So there are the fundamental factors which will need to be covered when you are devising a target operating model.
Can you share some examples, more specific examples? Again, as I said, we don't need to know the name of the company or the project, but things that you saw happening and it didn't work out well, or could have been done better, maybe, with
Yeah.
which our technology leaders who listen to my podcast might gain some insights of things that they can avoid in their daily work.
Yeah. So one is we had devised uh, basically AI ANPR system for the national highways. I mean, it was an amazing system which had been customized for Indian conditions. The results were outstanding, and the system is now being adopted at scale.
Okay.
Whereas we came out with a similar system for managing the wastage of onions,
Okay.
right? Using AI, understanding how the onion quality can be maintained. The system was very good when we actually, on the paper, when we had put it. But when we took it to the field, the complexities were really high,
Okay.
right? So that way, a lot of good technology which works on paper, right, which works as a pilot even, when it comes to large scale implementation, there might be challenges,
I see.
right? And the same technology, same concept will work very well in another industry, right? But in a particular industry, it might face challenges.
So I think one learning that I take from this is that we cannot copy paste technology or copy paste solutions from one industry to another or one company to another.
Correct.
If we have to implement it successfully, we have to see the current state, we have to see the future desired state, and then we have to see how do we move from the current state to the desired state in small incremental changes. And of course, then I have to have a partner who is with me in this whole transformation, not only in giving me the code base, but is actually working with me to take me from stage A to stage B.
Correct. Who understands the ground level situation as well, right? Who is able to tell me in terms of how this structured approach will work and is there to guide me along the path in each step.
Okay. And that, of course, needs a lot of experience. So, in one side, when AI is kind of making experience redundant on several areas, so this kind of opens up a new area where experience will be very valuable. Basically, having a very good contextual understanding of the environment where the business is functioning and how the change management will actually happen. So, people who understand that, in my understanding and your deliberation, would actually get more value as professionals, isn't it?
Correct. So now, if you look at it conceptually, AI will require digital data for it to make decisions,
Yes.
guide you on a particular way. So the million dollar question will be, how do you get that digital data for AI to gain that experience?
Got you.
And so, I mean, data needs to be generated from the source, and for that, you will need to have systems and processes in place.
Okay.
And your AI can solve it only when that is available. Without that being available, your AI system cannot help you.
So you have to set the system to start gathering the data right now, and then only you can think about any analytics or AI based transformation in future.
Correct. Precisely. So when your existing process is not generating enough data, right? AI cannot get an insight into it. AI will be able to help only once you have enough data for decision making. Right? So that is why for AI to be really helpful in solving real world problems, the first step will be to set up systems which help gather that data. Once there is enough data, AI can do wonders with it.
So, from this, I would like to dive a little bit deeper into some interesting problems that you have been solving recently, and that has worked well. And what were the insights you gained from that? So, I understand about the oil and gas movement in the country, which is a big problem that I think you have fundamentally transformed at a grassroots level. Having so many people all over the country for a tech company is not very common, especially of the size and scale that you are operating in. This means that you have gone deep into solving the problem and it is actually solved and you are retaining those customers, your revenue is growing from those customers. What are the other such examples that we can learn from?
See, from our experience, um, there is a huge opportunity for technology adoption uh, in solving very large scale real world problems. Let me take one example. Uh, One of the problems that exists is people, whether it is people or whether it is elephants who are trying to cross the track, they are getting hit by the trains, right? So earlier the trains were traveling at 40 kilometers per hour. The people who are working on the tracks were able to kind of move out of the track in time when the train approached.
Yeah.
Now trains are traveling at 120 kilometers per hour.
And
Right?
people have their earphones in their ears.
Earphones in their ears, there are too many distractions now. So
Yeah.
how do you basically alert them when the train is coming in, right? So we devised a system which has a combination of an AI camera, a lidar, and a vibration sensor, which will help identify trains that are 3 kilometers away,
Okay.
right? And give them a 30-second window for them to move out of the tracks,
Okay.
right? So that way, I mean, creating a combination of devices, right, which can help solve a particular business problem, right? So I mean, there is, as I mentioned earlier, there is no one size fits all,
Of course.
right? It is in terms of understanding what the problem is and finding out a customized solution which can solve that problem, right? So that way, one, from our experience so far, we see a lot of potential in terms of a lot more real world problems that can be solved with AI, right? I mean, while there is a currently a very limited impact of some jobs getting lost because of AI. In the longer term, we see a lot more jobs getting created because of AI.
When you said about this railway system, it reminds me of one of my early adventures. So when I studied video processing in my masters. When I came back to India, I thought I will start selling really high end deep tech capabilities to the market because I've learned that. And I went to one of the railway departments and I told them that in last 1 month I have heard about two different incidents where railway tracks have been broken or disrupted in northeast, and I have a solution for it, and I can help you have a continuous monitoring and alert system for that using video capture and processing of it in real time, and then alerting your head office. And I think it was 2000. And now I also realize that we discussed earlier in this conversation that if a technology is before time, or if a leader tries to implement it before time, the probability of failure is high. So a lot of times, our enthusiasm to adopt technology for which the organization is not yet ready is a bigger problem
Correct.
at times. So I think that failure I am able to relate even from a third party now. Obviously, I always thought that that is the reason that I was ahead of the time. But now, having that conversation with you, not only it reminds me of that incident, but it also reminds me of that learning that if we are trying to run too ahead of time, things may or may not work.
Yeah, and also the other factor, as we realized during the course, is that as people who are trying to define technology, we understand a lot more technology and we think in technical terms. But unless you convert it in business terms and tell the user in terms of the business impact that it's going to have in a business language, it becomes very difficult for you to bridge that gap between the user requirement and what you can provide.
True. Now let us go into a little bit of a more common business problem that people try to solve, like CRM. CRM is a very common software. Now, on one side, when we are talking about that, to every business is different and their problems are different, their implementation cycle is different, their users are different, and change management process in that organization is different. How can a single CRM code base, it can be anything, it can be Salesforce, it can be Zoho, it can be uh, n number of products which are available in the market, how can that be just bought and we assume that it is going to solve my problem? How is that working right now? Because I see some of these companies have millions of customers, they are signing up customers every day. Somewhere this is not aligning with the philosophy that you are sharing with me. What are your thoughts on that?
See, the way I see it now with everything, the key question is the reach, right? When you can have your masala dosa delivered to you, right, at home, when you can get healthcare services delivered to you,
Yeah.
right, your technology should also have that reach, whether it is a CRM or a ERP. Now, every system, right, will need to have that reach and the ability to capture and provide real time information as possible, right? And because real time information again is a very misused word right now, right? It always comes with a premium. So you will need to understand the frequency and how latest your data needs to be, right, and the reach that it needs to provide. As long as you are able to determine the need for that in your organization, you can customize your CRM or any other system for that matter, right? Uh, to basically provide that input or output at a time when it is needed, right? So, for instance, if a CRM is able to throw up right information which will help the business manager act upon it without delays, I mean, that the objective is solved. But if it requires complex processing and a lot of detailed analytics reports, which actually is not going to help him make decisions,
Right.
then you're not getting the ROI for the money that you invested on the system.
So the point is that a lot of these softwares, purely a system of records, will eventually lose its value over time. and if we can think about the system of flow and system of intelligence layers on top of it, now I think those will actually deliver the value.
Correct. So, I mean, how can you make the system get in the information that the business user needs without him having to really work for it, right? If I can just get it on a click away, right? Nothing like it, right? Ultimately, you would want your users to utilize the system as much as possible. That is where you are getting your ROI.
Right.
Right.
So in a way, if a CRM has to be used well, it should automatically create a customer in my system or a prospect in my system if I just visited them and came back, and it has, and somewhere on my device or somewhere it has managed to capture where I went, which person I met, and
Correct.
what did I speak, or maybe it takes a download very simply, and I'm able to create that lead. Because most of the time we see, I mean, I have seen so many companies, mid-market companies, smaller companies come and say, Abhishek, I want to buy the software, but my users don't use it. So I think the users are being made, made into the data entry operators, which they resist to a great extent.
Correct. And they are not able to retrieve the information in a mode and in a format they want.
Right.
Right. For instance, if I want to recall the name of a customer, and if I can just put in a context to it, and based on that contextual keyword, if all the customers related to it can be retrieved, right, then that will be a very good thing for the business.
So coming back to AI, now obviously AI has the power to connect. I mean, we already had the power using APIs, but now obviously the new term has called MCP. So now using MCP, we can connect different services. In each of the service, we can put a AI controller from which we can extract things, and we can still create a much better persona of every client, because the client is touching not only the sales team but also the delivery teams and also the operational teams and
Correct.
accounts team. So you have a much better understanding of that customer on fingertips now.
Correct. So, one, AI will help gather a much broader perspective about your business. You can link aspects which were earlier were operating in very watertight compartments. Now you can link them together, right? But again, you will also have to keep constantly evaluating in terms of whether it is adding value.
Of course, and again, I think there is a much bigger challenge there, which is more about security. Because when we were having watertight components, then the security was a big concern. Now we are letting them mingle all the data and now making it accessible to a larger audience in a more contextual form. Now that data security is even a much bigger problem. Because at times I may just take a context from a particular piece of information, but that context itself may reveal a lot more, which you don't want to reveal to that other individual. So you may restrict the access to that information, but you may not be able to restrict the context of that information.
Correct. And also, more importantly, how do I put in this control framework for the AI in the first place?
Right.
How do I tell my AI what to use the data for and what not to use it?
True.
Right. So that also becomes important. So, I mean, AI, like any other system, will need a control framework as well, so that it doesn't take off on its own. Right. We had the same problem when BI came up.
Right. So of course, so I think, and this is, I've been always advocating this part, and I would love to have your view on it. Since AI as a subject and as a technology is moving faster than governance, risk management, and all these, what I call the protective frameworks, these are moving at a much slower pace and AI is moving at a much faster pace. Do you think this will result into a meltdown? Because you cannot just keep running and the other things cannot catch up, because somewhere you have to stop. So either the governance framework will speed up and catch up with the innovation, or the innovation has to kind of take a pause and say, okay, let me first get governed. Because if you want to implement something in your organization, you will be a little cautious, right? I mean, though we talk, we can have large vision statements. That sounds great, right? But obviously you would like to protect yourself first, then do anything else.
I will put it like this. For AI systems to be adapted at scale as enterprise systems, there will need to be governance frameworks in place, right? And that will happen, right? So now, as I mentioned earlier, there are small experiments being done because of the initial euphoria. Once we are looking at AI coming in as enterprise level systems, which is going to touch each and every part of the organization, there will be broad based frameworks which will govern and control in terms of how the AI systems are going to be put in place as enterprise systems. Right, that would happen.
So, obviously, these will be two different things. One is what we call consumer AI, and one is enterprise AI. So, of course, enterprise AI needs different kind of frameworks, and consumer AI will need obviously a very different level of discussion, because there we are getting into the territory of privacy. We are
Yes.
getting into the territory of ownership of content, and a lot of those areas which are heavily contested today. So, do you think all this contest, if they become overpowering, they will slow down the pace at which things are moving at this point in time?
In my view, I think the consumer AI will still be rapid. It'll, I mean, the kind of problem that it solves now, I mean, that will continue still at a pace. Whereas the AI being adopted for the enterprise, right, when becoming enterprise level systems, that will grow at a mature pace with more systems and governance mechanisms being put in place, right? I mean, that would happen. So right now, most of the organizations are contemplating, they're still trying to find out in terms of what kind of governance and systems that will need to be there, right, for them to really leverage on AI, right? I mean, if you look at it, when the communication systems really picked up pace with your chat bots and everything becoming ubiquitous,
Yeah.
companies had a huge problem in terms of putting in frameworks and firewalls, right, to actually control communication so that enterprise data does not get leaked outside, right? I mean, we are going through a similar phase, right? So,
Right.
where people are looking at governance and control frameworks for AI right now.
So, shifting gears, Sri, as a technology company, how are you looking at upskilling, and I would call talent transformation within your organization? Because the skills that we knew yesterday would be less important tomorrow. What are you running as a system to make this change happen within the business?
So one is we are now having training programs on AI, no matter which function it is, whether they are coders or whether they are people in operations. Everybody is taught how to use AI agents, and they are being asked to showcase how AI is helping their function,
Okay.
right? For a coder, it will be a very different thing. For an operations manager, it will be a very different thing. But everybody needs to see how AI can add value in their function. So the way we are seeing it is AI as not being things that will replace people, but AI as being enablers for productivity within a particular function. That's
This
the way.
means you may not need to hire a lot of people in recent future.
Yes.
So the same people can do more, and you can add more capability to them.
Yes, same people can do more and same people can do the same things better.
Right. So I think this better thing has been very less talked about, because I think AI also enables people with lesser capability by augmenting a lot of knowledge which they may or may not have, and a lot of contextual awareness that they may or may not be able to gather when they are doing a task. So, for example, let's say you are talking about raising some money, right? Even the best of the guys in your team who might be looking at your finance, he may be missing 3 points that he should consider and think about when you are talking to an investor. So now the same finance guy would be much more intelligent in asking the right questions and getting a much better picture overall for decision making for himself and yourself. So, is that already? Are you already seeing that kind of things happening within your organization?
See, right now, what we are seeing is, at least the initial goal that we have set for ourselves, is that the individual should be able to appreciate how AI is going to help him or her
Right.
in the existing function that they have already performed, not necessarily in terms of newer goals. The next stage will be newer goals for them, where with this improved or enhanced performance or tool which they already have, how can they do things better?
Got you.
Right, so that there is no pressure on them to start delivering from day one. So once you have the pressure on them, then there might be resistance.
Got you. So I'm coming towards the last part of the conversation. Really learned a lot today. Thank you so much. Um, what are the top one, two, or three lessons, or I would say insights, you would like to share with technology leaders who sit inside the 6,000 mid-sized enterprises in India who will be the future of Indian economy tomorrow? And obviously, a lot of it will be driven by the technology adoption and usage. What is your message to them? How should they look at transforming their businesses, and how they should, evaluate the right opportunity, what we call the Pareto principle, the 80-20, in their businesses, and take the right decisions?
So one, my view would be that uh, the technology change will continue to keep happening. You cannot wish it away. So if an organization needs to uh, grow and survive, it will need to adapt to these technology changes. So the first point is not getting caught in a status quo. It should keep moving, right? The experiments may be small, but it shows that you are still kicking and you are still making
So
progress.
indecision should not stop them. They should
Inde-
take decision even for small ones.
Correct.
If they don't want to take big risks, they should take small risks, but they should keep taking those risks and move forward.
Precisely.
Okay.
Second, be very focused on your business problem. There will be a lot of noise in terms of technology upgrades around you. There will be a lot of peer pressure on what works for a particular organization. But as long as your business objective is clear and you are moving towards that business objective with right technology enablement, you are on the right track, right? You don't need to necessarily adopt technology because your peer or competitor is adopting it. Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, it is your organization. You know your organization the best.
So, which part of my process or which part of my organization needs the technology intervention? Can I create a difference there? Can I create a competitive advantage there instead of touching things all over the place?
Correct.
Okay.
Third is constantly evaluating where you are. This is very, very important. Just because you have introduced one change in one particular area does not mean that you have done it. Right? I mean, it is a constant change, a constant monitoring and evaluation. So, this framework of constant monitoring and evaluation is the key for a lot of successful organizations. To
Okay.
evaluate yourself, where am I going? I mean, I will have my plan, I will have my North Star. But do I constantly evaluate in terms of where I am compared to where I was a year back?
And again, how these leaders should also look at mid-market organizations, the pros and cons of working with mid-market organizations like yourself and mine, compared to the big bellwethers of the industry who literally have defined this industry. So obviously they get also caught between this crossfire that, should I use and be safe by using one of the top five of the country, or should I go to an innovator like Sri or Abhishek to get something interesting, where I am taking a bet, I'm maybe saving a little bit money, but there is a little bit of a risk because if I make a mistake, then it's on me. How do you suggest that leaders can navigate this?
And the thing with a smaller organization will be if you are looking at more agility, more ability to adapt, right? Then you will have to go in for a smaller organization. I mean, I don't think these are two mutually exclusive compartments. Just because I go with a larger player does not mean that I exclude a smaller player. I think there is, I should, at least if the end clients will see opportunities for both, right? Where I see a small but much more aggressive thing in terms of technology, I would probably go in with a smaller player. Whereas to solve a larger, more BAU-ish problem, I would get a larger player there.
Got you. So if you have to, again, I think I have another lens to look at it. So if I have to solve a problem which has a lot of moving parts, a lot of different functions collaborating, a lot of different tools collaborating, which needs 20 different capabilities in one place, I would rather go for a larger organization which may have all these things in one place. But if I'm trying to do an incremental change or even a transformational change in a niche area,
Correct.
like for example, what you were doing, you were just trying to fix the logistics monitoring and management in a big way just by bringing a device in those trucks which are moving around the country with a lock, which was the innovation, which makes them kind of say, okay, I think this I can do without going to the big five, and this company can actually solve this problem much faster, much better, with a much better hand holding, and went ahead with you guys.
Correct. So a smaller company, as a smaller company, I would want to ensure that I really look at what is required upstream as well as downstream, so that my value addition comes in as an entire package, right? The larger company will never get that agility
Right.
which a smaller company has in terms of looking at it and enabling.
Now, my last question, which is a tech entrepreneur to tech entrepreneur question, is where does this debate of product versus services go from here in this AI age?
See, in my worldly view, it is going to be a combination of a product and a service. So if you look at, we have around 8-10 products,
Right.
but we don't sell products.
Right.
We sell device as a service, right? The customer does not want to own the technology risk now.
Okay.
Given the pace at which technology is changing, the customer says, I mean, you provide me a solution to my problem. I don't care about what technology you use.
Give me the outcome.
Give me the outcome. I am interested in my business result. The way you use technology, whether you upgrade, you do it, I mean, it is your problem. What I want is a solution to my problem, keeping in mind these sanity factors or frameworks. Right?
So it looks like, going forward, the line between consulting firms and tech firms are going to kind of
It is going to get blurred, right? Earlier, there was the lines between your DevOps and your development blurred quite a bit. Now
Absolutely.
there is
no
no
line. Yeah.
between your consulting firms and your technology firms. It is going to blur because your AI has come in now. Every role is going to incorporate a lot more business problem solving to it.
Yeah.
Right. So that way, every role will need to start looking at a much larger picture of what it is trying to solve.
Excellent. Great insights, Sri. I'll be open to, if you want to ask any question to me, reversing the role. I'm happy to do that, but otherwise, I think it has been a great conversation.
It's good. So the question that I would ask you is, right, based on your experience in IT services, how do you look at changing the profile of resourcing? Right, earlier it was bread and butter Java or bread and butter .NET, right? Now it is more of AI, ML, and also the higher cost involved in hiring.
Of course.
So how do you see that impact, and how do you think firms can manage that?
So I think the talent transformation challenge is real, and we are trying to attack it from multiple ways. So the first big question that we are also currently working upon. So of course, the good thing is that we have long-standing partnerships. This gives us a breathing space to change. So we don't need to change this moment. We have 6 months to 1 year to change. That's the good thing. Now, how are we driving the change? The first thing that we are doing is basically internal upskilling. That's one thing which, of course, everyone is doing. You are also doing that internal upskilling, because without that things won't work. We have created very hard targets for that, because there are certain things we have been watching for some time. We did not take a movement because we just wanted to be sure that this is the direction we want to go. Now, once we have taken a decision, we are going all out to and have very clear objectives that, let's say, AI first coding. Now, at least half the team should learn AI first coding within a certain period of time. Now, once you have done AI first coding, of course, in the project life cycle, you start saving 25% of the time, because considering that coding is 50% of the time, QA and testing is the 25%, and requirement elicitation is 25%. So I'm actually saving 25% of the time. Now, how do I utilize this person's additional time in the business? This means that he has to gain additional skills. So now we are thinking what additional skills should we give him so that there is less gap between customer and the programmer. Because the biggest challenge is communicating from the customer's mind, the ideation of customer's mind to reach to the developer. This becomes Chinese whisper. They speak to the business analyst, they speak to the project manager speaks to the developer then tries to convert into a piece of code. How can I reduce this whole gap? So if we are saving this time, can we use this time to skill this guy to a level where we can minimize this gap? That's the second thing that we are trying to fix. And the third and most important thing we are trying to fix is what the future of teams would look like. What will be the team composition look like? Because we have worked through what we call waterfall model. Now a lot of companies work in the agile model. I mean, I know that's a very confusing word. A lot of companies are not in agile model, but they call it agile model. But yes, it is an agile model. So now what will be the next model? Because I think it's high time that the model will change now again. So what that model would look like, and can we invent that in our small way? And what the team structure will look like to do that. So all the three things are kind of connected to each other, but I believe that if we can solve that, we should be having some answer to the big question that you asked, that how are you looking at transforming your team, the capabilities, the roles in days to come. So I don't have a very clear answer, but I have a roadmap which I am working upon. I think in 6 months' time, we will have much clearer answer.
Very good. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Sri.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for the opportunity.
Thank you, and I learned so much, Sri. I am really grateful to you for taking out this time, and I'm sure the amazing work that you and Kriti Technologies are doing in this world, I hope it spreads not only in India. I think it's already from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and it's already from Assam to Gujarat. I hope it spreads beyond it, and you achieve greater success with the solutions you have.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. Wish you the same.
Thank you. Bye.